This is the second video looking at Advanced Higher Biology, Unit 3, Investigative Biology. Particularly Key Area 1, Scientific Principles and Processes, the B and C sections. So, Scientific Literature and Communications. Once we've done our study, how do we get that information out there? And Scientific Ethics, C. So, how do we make sure that what we're doing is ethical and that we maintain our professional integrity? We finished last video looking at the general investigation conduction and the idea that our findings must be reproducible. This is one reason why it's vital that when we publish our research, we include a full account of all methodologies used, the raw data, analysis, and conclusions that have been made so that others are able to repeat the experiment. As well as in journals, research can be shared through seminars, talks, and poster presentations at conferences. Often, to make sense of all this different information that's out there, researchers will publish a review article. Specialists in the field will go around, gather all the data on that topic, and put it in one place, one paper, so that people can work out what's happening in that field. The importance of peer review is that it's a critical evaluation by specialists who have expertise in that relevant field. Most scientific publications use a peer review process, so people with expertise in that field will assess the quality, the referencing, and they'll ensure that all of the conclusions match up both to the data within the investigation and to what is known about that topic so far. Science is very important, and it's important that it's not only just understood by scientists. It's not expected that the general public have a full understanding of each field of science. However, in the current age of disinformation, it's easy for anybody to disseminate incorrect or fictitious ideas in the media or online. And in this case, it's quite often treated with the same weight as someone who works in that field and researches it. When they say something, a random person on the internet says something, it's treated as equally valid. It's one of the main reasons why science education in schools is so important, and why it's important that when media outlets put information out, that it is correct and appropriate. That covered the communication side. From the ethical point of view, as our goal is for the public to trust us and rely on scientists, we must maintain our own standards of integrity and honesty. Within publications, this means we publish all the results, even when they don't agree with our hypothesis, or when it goes against what we've maybe been funded to find out, which will come into the bias sections later. It's very important that we also include any citations. So if we read a paper and we think something's very interesting from that paper, we can include it, as you can see at the top of this example here. So a citation within the text would be Lubian 2009, and this would then, at the end of the paper, there'd be a reference section where the full reference would be. It's very important that we always reference any information that we've got from another source. In the bottom of the screen, you can see something called Turnitin, which is widely used by all universities and research bodies. It can find any plagiarized piece of information. So you can see from the color coding, it shows you where each different section has been taken from. This keeps us honest when we're publishing reports and papers, and it means that all scientists abide by the same set of rules. In terms of ethics, there's slightly different ethics when we're looking at animal studies and human studies. For animal studies, we have to think of the concept of replacement, reduction, and refinement. These are the 3 R's within animal studies. So we try and replace or avoid using animals. If at all possible, if we can use cell lines, for example, we'd use that instead. We'd minimize the number of animals needed for the experiment. So obviously, there's no point using one animal and getting results that are not particularly reproducible and not particularly valid. But if you don't have to use 1,000 pigs, if you can use 100 instead, do. And refinement, again, making sure the conditions the animals are kept in and the techniques used are very precise so that it minimizes suffering. In terms of human studies, it's important that we have informed consent. So it's not just a matter of the person saying, yes, I agree to be part of your study. They need to know what the data is going to be used for. They need to understand when the data has been gathered. And as the middle picture describes, they need to be able to withdraw from this study, withdraw their data from the study at any time they want. And when their data has been gathered, whether that's just shoe size, BMI, or results from a drug trial, that information has to be stored very, very carefully, and confidentiality has to be kept. So quite often we'll anonymize the information when it's held in files if it doesn't need a particular person's name beside it. In terms of study design, we make sure that all the legislation and all the policies are followed. It's important that we always justify the value of the investigation that we're carrying out. If there's no reason to do a piece of work, and if it doesn't lend anything to the overall scientific discourse, there's no point doing it. It risks the safety of the subject species, the individuals, the investigators, and the environment. So we don't carry out studies unless they have some kind of realistic outcome for science. As I've just said, it's important that before we carry out a study, we look at legislation, any regulations, and any policies that might be in place. There's, especially around the SEPA and the environmental agencies, there's a lot of places that we can't put pitfall traps, that we can't put our waste products. We have to make sure that everything is completely ethical. And finally, something that can have a massive effect on our study is funding. So we have to really consider like the 3 R's. How do we reduce our experiment to the point where it's feasible, and so that we can justify what we're doing